We're here today for Nashville Museum in East Nashville, which is actually across the river, the Cumberland River, from the well-known Nashville, where Music Row is and all the hot spots. We're today with the master luthier, Manuel Delgado, and thank you so much for us being able to visit you today.
Oh, it's an honor for me.
Well, it's a real privilege for us too. Normally, Manuel, I'm on the other side of the camera, but today there was a special interest, my personal involvement with your family,
Right.
and something that I'm holding that we'll talk about here in a minute. But I called you a master luthier. Actually, what is a luthier?
Well, a luthier is the traditional way that somebody who hand makes string instruments is described. So it's kind of an old world art. It comes from like the word lute, but basically people who make archtop like violins, cellos, classical guitars. It's really more where the name came from. Nowadays, the word is used kind of for anybody who assembles instruments, but it's really more of a traditional term that was used for somebody who hand makes instruments.
Now, do you get into things as far as instruments other than guitars? Have you done like mandolins or anything of that
Oh
nature?
gosh, I build over 40 different string instruments. So anywhere from, concert classical guitars and flamenco guitars and steel strings are what my primary clients order from me. But I build instruments, Irish bouzouki, ukuleles, there's 4 different models, a lot of traditional Latin instruments, guitarrones, bajo sextos, vihuelas, mandolins, like you mentioned. I make a square neck resophonic, which is a dobro. So I mean, we could spend a show just talking about all the different instruments I build. But
And each has its own challenge too, no doubt, as far as the characteristics of the instrument and what it needs to sound like when you're done and so forth.
Yeah, I think one of the many gifts that my father and grandfather bestowed to me was when you get an understanding of the kind of like the DNA of an instrument, then all of a sudden transforming those characteristics into a different shape and a different string configuration and different tone becomes easy because suddenly you just kind of get it. So it's almost like if you're operating on someone from the United States as a surgeon, and then you get someone from a different country that comes in, their whole background and everything has made them different, but the essence of who they are is the same. So you want to still use the same kind of techniques and procedures, if you will.
You mentioned your dad. Hank Williams Jr. has a song called Family Tradition.
Yeah.
We won't get into the lyrics as to why his is a tradition, but
Yeah.
actually you have quite a tradition in your family. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. But I have a little bit of a tradition with your family going back when you were just a little boy.
Yes.
I have a guitar here that your father, Candelario, made for me
Yes.
in actually 1975. I was just a little boy too.
Yeah.
But actually I was in college and going to Cal Arts in Los Angeles. The shop was there on Sunset Boulevard.
1066
Yeah.
Sunset Boulevard. Yeah.
And I used to go down, being a music major, I'd go down to your father's shop. And I'd go in there and drool over all his handmade guitars and everything. And he would see me all the time. And one day, my grandfather actually died and left me $500. And that wasn't enough to buy the guitar I wanted from your dad. So I scraped together a few $100s more. And that still wasn't enough. But your very kind and generous father said, "It is enough. We'll do it for you."
Yeah.
And it was just such a thrill. And every day he let me pick out the wood, and this was it, East Indian rosewood.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And it had, at the time, it's been a little bit changed, but I think this was Canadian spruce at the time. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
And of course mahogany.
Honduras mahogany.
Yeah. And the ebony.
African ebony on the fingerboard.
And your grandfather, Porfirio, as a gift, he let me lay this out as far as the design. And your grandfather did the inlay with the mother of pearl.
Yeah.
And then of course we got the abalone around it.
Yeah.
And later I put the gold dove on it. That was
Yeah.
sort of my little
I think it looks cool.
customization.
So you have my approval on that.
Oh, well, that's good. I was going to ask you how far to go with it, but This guitar has just gotten better over the years. Just play just a little bit. It's got such a resonance to it, you know? It's just got a lot of real nice resonance.
Well, that's the great thing about a handmade instrument and something that's made out of solid wood is as the instrument ages, it actually opens up. So I always tell my clients when I give them their instrument, I say, this is the worst that it's ever going to sound, you know, because, and I mean, obviously, and the same reaction, like you mentioned, your wife mentioned when you had the guitar was like, oh my gosh, it just sounded so wonderful when you first got it. But if you were to have used professional recording equipment and recorded it and then duplicate that same song today, you would see how much more it's just opened up.
Right. It's kind of like a wife. The longer you have her, the better it is, right?
Amen, brother. There you go.
Yeah, let's see, the older the fiddle, the sweeter the song.
There you go, yep.
But this has such a nice bottom on it, too, at the bottom end. It's just, it's got everything going for it.
Well, that was the first thing that I noticed about it when you gave me the honor of being able to see this, and you know, and yeah, when you played the bass notes, I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, and you feel it too. That's the other great thing. You know, it's very light. You know, you think of most mass-produced instruments, and when you pick them up, one of the first things you notice is how heavy they are. This instrument is so light, and you're playing it, and you can feel it in your chest cavity, just kind of reverberating.
Yeah, that's it. Well, your father Candelario built the guitar. Your grandfather Porfirio did the inlay for me, a very gracious thing. But now you have quite a product line of your own guitars, and I noticed that one of them is called the Candelario.
Yes.
That's after your dad, no doubt.
Yes.
What are the characteristics of that guitar?
Well, my father passed away in 1996, and I was fortunate enough to grow up in the shop, and I started making guitars when I was 12 years old. I made my first guitar, and I still have it. And so I was able to work with him and with my grandfather, and he's a huge influence in my life and who I am today as a husband and a father and a person. And I say all those things because everything I do within my business is about honoring my parents and my grandfather and even my great uncle who passed away when I was much younger, but the legacy that they've allowed me to carry on. So when I think of an instrument that I wanted to appropriately name after him, I chose one of the models that he used to make for like Segovia, who my grandfather and great uncle, he had commissioned 3 instruments from them. And Feliciano has 5.
Yeah.
Well, 3 of the 5 that Feliciano all have this same model or body style, which is why I chose to name this one after him. It's larger than a standard classical guitar. So as if you were to go to a music store today and look at a classical guitar, they all have similar dimensions, shapes, so forth. This is a much bigger instrument. Not a lot, not like a steel string. It's not going to be that much bigger, but it is a larger instrument. And it's very traditional. So 2 inches at the nut, 2.5 at the 12th fret, you know, and usually a 650 millimeter scale, although that can all be customized. I usually only make them out of Indian rosewood or Brazilian rosewood on the sides and back, and I like to use like master grade German spruce for the top, ebony for the fingerboard, Honduras mahogany for the neck. So all of these characteristics that what would be considered a concert classical guitar. I've never made it in a cutaway, but it is available in a cutaway model also. So
well, I want to talk about the next one because the next model is very near and dear to your heart. It's named after your wife, Julie.
Yes.
Maybe we can have her come in for a second?
That would be great.
Now, the Julie guitar, is this it back here?
That's it right there.
Let's bring it up a little bit and tell us a little bit about that. I know you're very proud of that, and you should be.
Oh, yeah.
And,
well, Julie is an intricate part in our business also. So not only is she able to inspire me for the way I build and different things like that. She's, I mean, my business partner, my partner in life, my wife, you know, the mother of my child. But the way Julie and I met actually is, I'll do the edited version, but I was dating some girl and I saw Julie singing on stage at church. and I just was like, oh my gosh, she has a beautiful, beautiful voice.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward, I'm no longer with that girl anymore, obviously, but
Good
You
thing.
made the
Yeah,
right choice.
I did.
Right choice, yeah.
So, yeah, when I made a steel string model, I wanted it to have a good balance, an ability to have both low registers and high registers,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a very unique body style, and I wanted it to kind of stand out, and just some of the marks like the bridge, you know, a lot of things that are very unique, and that's the way that I think of Julie. So
That's sweet.
mhm.
It must make you
Thank
feel
you.
good that you
Oh,
have a
yeah.
guitar named
Oh,
after you,
yeah.
especially where it's so popular and everything. Now, I understand that you're a singer and songwriter as well.
Yep.
Do you play the Julie guitar when you perform?
Actually, no, I have my own. I'm waiting for my own order.
Okay, that's
So,
good.
I'm gonna have a signature model actually. So.
Terrific.
Yeah, she does have. I will say this though, she has the only steel string guitar that was made by my father and by me.
Oh, wow.
So, and it's a
That's
dreadnought
nice.
model, similar to the body style as yours.
Yeah,
So that's what she's playing now.
that's terrific.
But it's kind of like, you know, the shoemaker's kids never has any
Right,
shoes. She's been
right.
waiting for her guitar
Yeah.
for some time.
Well, I'm
so.
sure she'll get it, especially now. You know, you have another model too called the Marta. That's your mom's name, right?
Yes. Mhm.
And she's doing well, I hope.
Yes,
Mhm.
she's doing very well.
And then the Rosario.
There's the Marta, there's the Rosario.
Mhm.
Now the Marta is a concert classical guitar, which is more in line with the classical guitars as we would see nowadays in that body style. And then I also make a Marta hybrid model, which is unique. It's a custom scale. It has a radius fingerboard. It has a cutaway. It has an 18-hole bridge design. So instead of having to tie the strings, you can actually loop it in, out, and through.
Yeah, yeah.
And these are all characteristics designed for steel string players who want to play a nylon string instrument. So
I
it makes
see.
that transition a lot easier.
Yeah.
And then the Monica model is a flamenco guitar.
That's named after.
Named after my sister.
Mhm.
And then the Rosario is like a smaller body steel string, like a triple O body, named after my grandmother.
Mhm.
And coming soon is the Ava model, named after my little girl, which is
Oh.
going to be a parlor steel string.
Yeah, and we saw her today. Sweetest little girl that you'd want to see. Now, do you play steel string when you
Yes,
perform?
yes.
Good. Tell us just a little bit as to you went all the way from East LA.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're from the general Los
Los
Angeles
Angeles.
area. You moved from East Los Angeles to East Nashville.
Right.
Now that's a big move, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, there was. It's kind of cool. Again, Julie and I met in 1999. Well, in 1993, I believe it was. My father actually sent me here to Nashville. He and my mom had come here on a trip, and he wanted me to check out Nashville. And he said, "Oh my gosh, you got to go down there. It's a great town. Maybe we'll open a store down there." Okay, so I came and fell in love with the town, and just really had a good time. Well, Julie came in '94. Is that right?
Yeah, vacationing because I'm a country fan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's a country music fan. So she came with her parents in 1994, and Julie kind of secretly had this dream of someday, coming here and giving it a go as a songwriter and singer. And then fast forward, we met in 1999 with no plans of ever, when we got married, talking about moving here. But it just with different circumstances that happened in our life, we just. The way I looked at it was Julie's always been very supportive of everything I've done, and I've been blessed to be able to do something that I love, and I wanted her to have the opportunity to pursue what she loves also.
Yeah.
And I can build instruments anywhere. As you can see, this is
Yeah.
a small location.
Well,
So-
it's a great location to be at. I mean, Music City and all
Oh,
the
yeah.
guitar players in town, and a lot of guys from LA and everything have been moving here in the last
Right.
several years.
Yeah.
So it's not like it used to be years and years ago, where it was just very traditional, old style country. It really has evolved into
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of
So many styles of music now, so many different great restaurants and different cultures coming in with their influence of not only food but music. But yeah, it's not the Nashville that people would think of in the past. However, it still has that charm and,
Right.
and that hometown feel
Yeah.
that people love.
Now, just briefly, let me ask you, if you don't mind. You have several different styles of guitar that you make with the different models, and what is the, just in case someone would want to say, well, could I even afford a Delgado guitar? What's the general price range that they would
You
spend
can't afford
from?
not to have a Delgado
Well, that's
guitar.
true. I have one.
There you go. There you go. Testament right there.
Yeah.
But well, again, because I make so many different models, I make some instruments, for example, like the ukuleles that start closer to like the $1,500 range. But as far as in a guitar, if somebody were to want an instrument, they start off, I'd say they range starting at anywhere from around $4,500 and up. And it really can go, it just depends. I'm building an instrument for a client in Los Angeles that's basically the top of the line, everything, concert classical guitar, and that's roughly about $15,000.
Wow.
So it just depends on, you know, so people hear that number and that
Right.
immediately scares them. But again, on a steel string model, you know, you might be able to find something in around the $4,500, $5,000 range. And these are handmade, custom built instruments.
That's the point.
It's
Isn't
not
it?
like you're picking something off the shelf.
Exactly, and that's where it's all at. Two, when we think about that, how long does it normally take? I realize depending on what the guitar demands, as far as the features and so forth, but on the average, how long does it take to actually do a guitar?
An average instrument would take roughly about 200 hours, and that's actual hours being put into the instrument. When you have something that has a lot of intricate inlays, like the fingerboard on your guitar, or the abalone shell around the top or around the rosette, that's going to take more time. So the more detail oriented it is, the longer it takes. But on average, roughly about 200 hours. And again, this is all handmade. There's very little power tools in this shop, as you can see.
Now, as far as customizing a guitar that you've already made, now I did a little on this one because I think it was your brother, Tomas, that actually did the white face on it for me. It was a natural Canadian spruce originally. And of course the gold dove on the end, 24 karat gold.
There you go.
Plated. But, you know, those are designs that sometimes you just feel like adding. What's your feeling on how much a person customizes what you've already done to the guitar?
Well, one of the things that I try to do is I try to build an instrument that is custom for the client. So I want it to have all of the, whether it be the subtleties or the very obvious characteristics that customer is looking for. So as time goes on, after they've taken it, if they've decided to make alterations for it, well, it's their instrument, you know. And if it's between them not doing it and maybe trying to find something else that they can adjust and play in that instrument, or making changes to the one I made and having them play it, I would much rather them make the changes and continue playing that instrument.
Yeah.
So I guess from an artistic standpoint, you would think that I'd say, oh no, the instrument has to be left alone,
Right.
you know. But I would much rather, whatever it's going to take for that customer to continue to have that love affair with the instrument is what I want.
Yeah. And it really is a love affair, isn't it? You know? I think it was Segovia that had mentioned to your uncle something along the line that the guitar is like a woman.
Yeah.
Don't change it.
Yeah.
When it's made, it's made. You know?
Yeah,
So I can understand
He took
that.
a guitar to Segovia and he played it, and he said, you know, oh, I love this guitar, and, you know, who did you make it for? You know, kind of as if he didn't know. And my great uncle said, oh, well, maestro, I made this guitar for you. And he said, oh, I love it except for the frets. He didn't like the frets. He liked a jumbo fret, and it had a standard fret. And my great uncle said, well, I'll take it back and I'll take the frets off and I'll put the other frets on there for you. And that's when he said, oh, no, a guitar is like a woman. The way she is the way she is. Leave it. Make another one and I'll come back for that one.
That's it. You know, we've only known each other for a short while, but it's like I've known you for a long time, because as I talk to you, it's like talking to your dad a little bit too.
Thank you.
And thinking about your dad, I know that you put a lot of heart and soul into your work. It's very serious and it comes from within. And that's what makes a master workman. You're a master in the woodwork. You know, a carpenter can say, well, you know, I'm really a master in my cabinetry and all. And many times they are, but you have to go farther than that because you have to deal with sound. And so it's beautiful woodwork and it's beautiful sound. So it really actually does go into a different realm, doesn't it?
It has to be strong enough to withstand the pressure of the strings, and a steel string guitar with medium gauge strings has 188 pounds of pressure pulling from the headstock and the bridge. So you have to make it strong enough to where it will last, 30 some odd years
Yeah.
or longer.
Right.
But if you overbuild it, then you get no resonance out of the wood, and then it doesn't have any sound.
Mm-hmm.
And so many instruments nowadays are designed to be plugged in. So they're acoustic, but everybody plugs them in and they say, oh, I love the way this thing sounds. But acoustically, they have no tone.
Yeah.
And I'm the opposite. I feel my responsibility is to make a beautiful instrument that sounds great, and then we'll find a pickup system to complement it,
Right.
which is like what you've done with your instrument.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know that your dad would be very pleased with your guitars that you're making today,
Thank you.
but I think he would even be more pleased with the type of person that you've turned out to be.
Oh, well, thank you very
And
much.
I know that he really would. And you've got a lovely wife, and the two of you have a beautiful baby,
Thank
Ava.
you. Ava, yes.
And I'm sure that she will probably be interested to carry on the family tradition
Oh,
in
yeah,
some
she's
extent.
going to be
in
the
some
fourth
way.
generation luthier, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Well, thank you so much again for having us in your workshop and talking about your fantastic operation here. And for Nashville Newsine, we have to say, that's a wrap.